All right.
Yeah.
Well, now we are ready to roll with James Shotwell.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It is freezing in Michigan, but I'm here.
What's the temp?
Like 30. It's always 30 or below these days.
Believe it or not, here in Nashville, it's perfect. It's like 50-degree weather.
Shh. It's okay. I'll forgive
So,
you. I'll be there in
yeah.
like 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you're coming for CRS.
For CRS, yeah, it'll be my sixth time, I think, going.
Are you doing interviews with artists while you're there?
Yeah, we're doing a few. We're still setting them up. I'm also speaking on a panel the first day. So that's actually why we're going. I've never spoken there before, but they actually, after years of attempting, they're finally allowing me to talk this year.
Awesome. What are you talking about?
I'm joining a couple actual radio people. I don't work in radio, my wife does, but I love it. And at my old job, I was really involved in learning how radio works from a promotional standpoint, and that's when I started going. But this year, I'm talking about turning news into videos, basically, kind of like telling them how to do what I do. They're always playing catch up in radio and trying to get a lot of radio people to move into TikTok, and video is what all these companies want, but a lot of them are dinosaurs that have no idea. So we're going to do like a crash course, like the simplest way to start making video content.
Awesome. Well, I have to tell you, bud, just to start off, I love your content.
Well, thank you.
You do a lot of great stuff. You talk about a lot of artists that I enjoy hearing about. You do a lot of cool news stories, new information. I've got one that just came up on my feed before we came on. Swifties call for Taylor Swift to dump Travis Kelce after he says it's a great honor that President Trump is coming to the Super Bowl. Boy, you don't want the Swifties after you.
No, I purposely avoid them. Actually, every now and then I'll post something that's like, the 10 diamond certified country songs or something. And Swifties will inevitably be like, well, what about Taylor? She doesn't have one to start with. But I try very hard to avoid topics where someone could be like, but what about Taylor Swift? So I just stay out of it. I'm a big fan, so I just stay out of it.
Yeah, I was the first time I ever heard her name announced on the radio, I thought they were about to say my name. Because they got to the SW of Taylor Swift, and I was like, wait, I don't have a song on the radio.
Is this my moment?
Yeah, is this my moment that I didn't even know was happening?
That's amazing, man. No, yeah. We don't do a lot of Taylor Swift stuff. I'm hoping that Reputation comes out. That's my Taylor era, but we stay out of it. And I don't even think I've ever done a video that's like about her country era. When we get there with like the Taylor's version of Taylor Swift, I'm sure that we'll have to talk about it. But until then, I'm blissfully unaware in a public facing way.
I've never really understood the hate for Taylor because she built something great. Now, could I name my top 5 Taylor Swift songs? Probably not. I love the song Better Man that she ended up writing for Little Big Town. I think that's great. I like Tim McGraw, but I don't know why we have to knock her success. She's done good for herself.
I would put money on Tim McGraw being on the Tim McGraw, like Taylor's version when we eventually get there. I think that collab will happen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like, why not? Like at this point, they've already performed it together a few times over history. So I think that when we get to Taylor's version, her doing a new version that incorporates him or someone else in country would make a lot of sense.
Now, the good conspiracy theories around like football is, let's see, we're doing this on February 5th. It'll release after the Super Bowl. So maybe we can go ahead and congratulate the Chiefs on their win.
Oh, yeah, maybe, possibly. I'm not a big football guy, but I do follow, the Super Bowl like everyone does. So,
well, everyone thinks it's rigged for the Chiefs.
It's rigged for the Chiefs with a proposal at the end, right? Like that's what I always hear. It's like they're going to win, he's going to propose, and then he's going to retire, and it'll be like something out of the movies. Which these days, I mean, sure, why not? Like reality feels that way sometimes.
Well, wouldn't that be great if we went ahead and just foreshadowed the future on this podcast?
Yeah, we can, man. Congratulations to the couple. I hope it doesn't interfere with Reputation Taylor's version. Otherwise, wishing them all the best. Hope he retires. Enjoy all the money. You made it, bud.
So I told you about, I like conspiracy theories, and you do a lot of modern stuff. I love the Zach Top Alan Jackson conspiracy theory.
Yeah, man. We met Zach Top last year, and it's so funny. We've met him. We've spent time with him. I've probably seen his face 1,000 times in the last year, and I never thought of that correlation. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, that's so good. And especially because, again, like that started with a radio person, right? Like that was a radio DJ just kind of talking onto the internet, and it worked. And now the update that we all have seen this week with Zach Top being like, I don't know the answer. My parents, That's Rob and Holly out of Detroit. Country radio is out there doing the work. And I know that country radio gets a lot of slack, but this is an example where like DJs have access and they're actually using it to give us something original that's really engaging and fun. And even if it doesn't turn out to be fair, like people are starting to talk about Zach Top in an interesting way. He's going to get more attention on country radio as a result and maybe actually get played there. So like, I mean, the whole thing's a win-win, even if it's, nonsense.
Yeah, Zach is really a special guy for to bring back the '90s country sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we saw him in January opening for Flatland a year ago. I mean, geez, a week ago at this point. He was the sweetest boy. But I think that sound is having a moment. He's bringing it back for sure. It's interesting to see how many people act like, well, tell me, what I find interesting is that people are always like, Zach Top's bringing back real country. But I feel like 9 times out of 10, when people do this throwback sound, no one says that they're playing real country music. They say that like they're imitating real country music or they're trying to be, but he gets a pass. And I couldn't tell you why other than like, you just know, right? It's like that old saying, like you just know when you know, and you hear that sound, it's real. Yeah. It just feels real. It just feels good. I love when somebody can sell it to me,
Yeah.
He's from Washington. He doesn't talk like that, or he didn't originally talk like that, but he plays the game so well that you're like, you know what? I game recognize game here too. There's like a level of the country music walk that he's doing, and I really appreciate how well he does it.
Well, they got rednecks in Washington. Some of those rural areas, they have country boys. Trust me.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Well, let me ask you. So, what inspired you to get into content creation?
Oh man, so I've been doing this since 2008 as a country music creator. Long story short, elevator pitch of my life. When I was 14 years old, I found out that every town has a budget for entertainment. And my village of 1,400 people had one that we never used. So I petitioned the town to give me $5,000 to open an all-age venue. And they did, a 14-year-old. Who knows why, but they did. We opened the venue. I booked shows like punk bands, Christian alternative bands, things like that. Played in bands, went to college, and I started writing about music in 2008, like alternative music, punk music, the Warped Tour scene, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that until almost 2.5 years ago when I moved to country. But in that time, I wrote for Rolling Stone, and I was a Warped Tour manager. I worked at a bunch of music startups. I worked in music promotion, label relationships. And the whole time I liked country music, but it never fit in with what I was doing, right? Like I got a job, I started writing about punk music, got a job in punk music, moved into rock. So my world was just that all the time. I was interviewing some Swedish metal band instead of talking to whoever's on the country charts. Couldn't even tell you, but I always like loved the genre. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, I was speaking at Music Biz, which is a big industry conference of people trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And it was my third time speaking there. And I was talking about the idea of native lands, this idea that like you shouldn't just make content for all these platforms. You should house it somewhere for yourself. And TikTok was a big topic at the time. And we were at dinner that night, me and my buddy Dustin, who runs Venture Marketing. They actually do Zach Top's marketing campaign. Venture Marketing is behind that. I'm at dinner with him and a few other people. And we're talking about TikTok. We're talking about trends. And I said, I've never seen somebody just talk about country music on TikTok. Like a song comes out. I've never seen somebody just like talk about it the way that I see like people react to hip hop music. Or I have a friend named Jesse who does kind of what I do, but in alternative music called Jesse. His name's Jesse Lee. And I was like, I've never seen that in country music. Like, I know that people like Cody Allen exist and Bobby Bones exists, but who is that on TikTok? And the whole table was like, I don't know. And I immediately was like, everyone shut up. This is mine. I was like, this idea does not leave this room until I do something with it. Okay. And everyone was like, all right, we agree. So I came home and I told my wife, I was like, I think I want to do a country music TikTok account. I think it would work. I think it'd be a fun idea. I had never made a TikTok. I'd like been waiting for an idea. And I became obsessed. I still am obsessed with Ashley Gorley, the songwriter, and how many
most number ones ever. I think
most number ones ever. A really kind of interesting person too, from what I've learned over time. But like, I love those little country details. Like, did you know this guy wrote every song that you love for the last 10 years? So that was kind of the first video I ever made was, did you recognize that Luke Bryan's Play It Again and Last Night, and I forget what the third song was, that all these songs are written by this guy, and it got like 250,000 views. And my second video was about the songwriter Brian Johnson, who was in Boys Like Girls, my emo pop punk world that I come from. He wrote Drunk and I Don't Want to Go Home for Miranda Lambert. Second video was about that, and that one did like 1 million views. And so like right out the gate, proof of concept worked.
Hmm.
And from there, I just was like, I guess we're doing this now. I mean, for the first few weeks, I did try like other TikTok things, maybe a trend, or I used to make content related to marketing your music. So I was trying to balance like country music facts, country music news, and like how to market your country career. And I eventually just kind of let that go altogether, focused on what we do now, which is pretty much like what interests me plus what's happening. But mostly it's just like things I find interesting about country music. We really fall into a gray area. I have friends like you've talked to some of them, like Nikki in Nashville and
Hmm.
Dylan Weldon. I think that they're much more cut and clear influencers in the traditional sense, where it's like, well, for starters, their names are just their names, right? When you see them, you're like, Dylan's always wearing the hat and the shirt, and he always is talking about country music. He's the country music history guy. That's what he loves. What we do is a little bit more that, but we also have this component of like news and journalism to it that I try to mesh the two ideas together. It gets us into trouble sometimes because we'll talk to people like, I didn't realize you were an influencer, but it is definitely just me all the time, just wearing many hats. That's a very long answer to your question, but about 2.5 years ago, because it seemed like a good opportunity.
So, you did that first Ashley Gorley video 2.5 years ago,
August of 2022 or 23, August of 23, I think. 22,
and there
no,
really
22.
wasn't much of creators yet. I thought there had been.
I mean, Dylan existed, but he wasn't big yet. Nikki hadn't started yet. Eddie Morange, who I think is like the fourth horseman of our little four horsemen of country influencers, he hadn't started yet. Eddie didn't start until October of 2023. So it was still like there were people making music videos, stuff that was like cool country songs you need to hear, part 37. But I never liked that stuff. My whole reason for doing this is like I hate the element of social media that is no context entertainment, right? Like you open your phone, there's Parker McCollum on stage, and he's like, guys, I'm canceling the show tonight. And you're like, what is this? Where is this happening? What's going on? Why did this happen? And the idea behind Country Minute is just like taking those viral clips and finding the context. And like that's kind of the niche that we've tried to build. And as far as I know, at that moment, it didn't exist. Like CMT was just posting their exclusive clips, and the other platforms were only really on Instagram, not really utilizing TikTok as their main. So we focused on that first, and over time have kind of built out Instagram and YouTube and everything else.
Yeah, I was telling Jim Belisle from Boots and Whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling him that you have an entertainment news aspect to what you do over at Country Minute.
Yeah, that's
But
kind of how I feel about it.
you're really part of a crew that I really appreciate. One name you left out was a Dylan Holiday that does country
Holiday,
music.
yeah.
Holiday and Weldon, they do phenomenal content for country music history. I love that they're educating people on, the roots of country, where it came from.
Yeah.
Nikki in Nashville, I'll always credit with someone that, on top of being just this great music curator for everybody, like she literally introduces me to new artists, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And then now I'm starting to get some of my news from you. I'm like, I didn't know that this was happening. I didn't know that this was happening. And it's a Jim Belisle over at Boots and Whiskey. It just, y'all all make up this really interesting time in independent content creation that puts the power, independently.
Yeah.
It's not huge corporations like the stuff Whiskey Riff and Saving Country Music do. I also put that as independent journalism.
Totally.
It's just like phenomenal how everything's coming together. And y'all, in my opinion, are lifting up the entire genre of music history and the present and the future.
We're trying, man. I appreciate that quite a bit. And I think that we all have a niche to fill. Marketing hasn't really caught up with the little niches that we all piece together, but I do think that we're doing something special. And it's not for lack of wanting to work with those big places. Before I started this, I had an interview at Holler. Holler hadn't really launched yet, but I was talking to the owners of Holler, and Country Minute had just started and it was doing really well. And we had more followers and everything than Holler, but they have funding. Like Holler is funded by a person with a bank account. So there was a real big temptation to go there, but we decided to stay independent. And Country Central, we wanted to be really good friends with, and it just has never really worked out for whatever reason. And that's fine. I've learned there's this great Ronnie Dunn quote where he says like, country music, the idea of country music is that there's room at the table for everybody. And while that might be true, that doesn't mean we all like each other. And
yeah. You're talking about what he said on Theo Von.
I had to learn that lesson the hard way, like 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always thought, and I use that all the time. I have a manager who helps us with all of our business stuff, and there have been times when things have kind of become cutthroat unnecessarily, and I've been like, "There's enough room at the table, man. They don't all have to like us, but I do think there's enough room at the table for all of us to be there."
It's not a zero-sum game.
No, no.
But you guys are super important. When an independent artist comes along and they need a good push, whether or not it's a paid for advertisement or not, when someone with 100,000 followers can start to kind of shine a light on someone that maybe other people haven't heard about, it's so important.
It is.
It's giving the power of music back to the people.
Mm-hmm.
But between what some of you guys are doing in the content creation, where y'all are as important to the artist as what CMT used to be for them.
And I don't think I think people notice, but they don't really understand what's happening sometimes in that respect. Like last year, 2 biggest songs of the year, Dasha and Shabuzi. Everybody I know got paid for both of those songs, right? Like we all got paid to post Dasha. We all got paid to post Shabuzi when they first came out. But that little bit just gets the ball. People seem to think that like they just throw money at all of us, we post it, and then the song takes off. That's not really how it works. The song still has to be good. Lots of people throw money and the song never goes anywhere. That's just the nature of the game. But doing those deals also allows us the opportunity to start giving those fans a place online. Shabuzi already had an audience, but in the country world, he hadn't really found a place where his fans could all kind of commune together. And those kind of campaigns create those opportunities. All of us post about it. At least 1 or 2 of us are going to start posting about Shabuzi all the time, and we're going to gather those fans. I mean, for us last year, we did a Shabuzi post in 2023 for, I don't even remember what the song was, the one before Bar song, Let It Burn. Great song. Didn't really go anywhere. We all got paid for that. They came back with a Bar song. We did the video, the song blows up, and then I have something to talk about all year because we do chart news. So then we can be like, we've been riding this song the whole way. And then at the end of the year, Google came to us and we're like, we want to use the audio from one of your videos in the Shabuzi Google campaign. And I was like, man, this all started from somebody being like, can we pay you to talk about this song?
Yeah. Wow. What did you think about the Grammys and Beyonce winning Country Music Album of the Year?
To me, it's all, I take the opinion that if I made a video about it and I deleted it, but my whole point is always like, if you're looking to the Grammys to reflect your taste in music, it's a losing game. Because if you love music enough to care about what the Grammys choose beyond being like, that's a good performance or like good for them, then I don't think they're not for you. The Grammys are like the most generalist of award shows, and they're just really high level. It's like watching a sitcom and expecting to be moved on a deep emotional level. It can happen, but it's not what they exist to do. You know what I mean? The Grammys are not there to make you feel seen as a music fan. I don't think most of those are. The CMT Awards a little bit more. And when people get worked up, I think it's good for the Grammys in the short term. And it doesn't really matter to those artists' careers. Hopefully people go out and support them. What I found interesting this year from my perspective is we made this video that was all of the artists reacting to it, right? So after the news comes out, Beyonce wins, I started looking at all the comment sections on Country Central and Whiskey Riff, and all these verified accounts are commenting. So we took like 5 or 6 of these, put them together, put them in a video. And then yesterday, one of those artists, I won't say who, I'm reaching out to their team for another client that they represent. And they said, hey, have you received any weird messages about your Beyonce video? I'm like, no, not really. And they said, oh, because we've been receiving death threats all day. And we're actually talking to the police because people are threatening our families and threatening us with all sorts of horrible things. And I was like, for what? And they're like, well, they just don't agree with what X artist had to say. And let me tell you, if you go find this video in the future audiences, you're not going to find anything where somebody's like weird or, in any ways loud about how they feel. Everyone was just kind of like, award shows are a sham, but apparently that's enough to get people worked up. So I don't know. Whoa. It's not really a thing. We're just out here telling stories.
I didn't know that she had 72 songwriting credits on that one album.
Oh man, my favorite thing to do on Spotify is click on song credits every weekend. Like that's a lot of our ways that we've grown on social is to really target recognizing songwriters, especially the ones that come up a lot. But that's how you find artists like that. Or man, there's a song on the Jelly Roll record I want to say has 13 people credited, and I was just like, dang, But you got to remember, if you sample something, you have to credit all those people too. So sometimes when someone says there's 72 songwriters, it's like, I think the Ariana Grande song Seven Rings has 14, but 8 of them are because they have samples. And then there's like 4 people. And it's like, okay, well, that's a normal writer's room just with a bunch of other credits.
Took my buddy Jen McBride and Alan Jackson alone to write Chattahoochee. You don't need that many people on a song.
That's amen to that, right? They just don't do it like that anymore.
And there's that much sampling going on in Jelly Roll's music?
Sometimes, buddy.
Wow. I like Jelly Roll.
I like Jelly Roll a lot. My favorite thing about him is that his biggest hits, the ones that you know the best, at least three or 4 of them have been written by this pair of brothers, the Ruzicka brothers. Joe is one of them. I forget the other one's name. They're both in a pop punk band called Patent Pending that never really blew up, but they were Warped Tour mainstays for like the entire, 2005 through the end of Warped Tour. Patent Pending would be on almost every single year. And they never found that song, that thing that exploded, but they've written like I'm Not Okay for Jelly Roll. They both have a hand in that. And so that has now paid the bills tenfold compared to the last 15 years of their career. But they needed that to do the Jelly Roll thing. So I like Jelly Roll for that reason. He's giving all these new opportunities to people.
Did you know those brothers from back in the day when you were working with Warped Tour?
Yeah, I was.
That's pretty
managed,
cool for you to see.
I managed
that.
a stage for them in 2012. They played on a stage I was managing. So I spent the whole summer with them. And I like their music a lot, but I remember looking at the credits for a Jelly Roll song and being like, wow, those names sound familiar. Like Googling, being like, oh my gosh. Now it's my favorite little Warped Tour fact.
I just think Jelly Roll has done a lot for country music and, the depth of an actual character. His character, his persona, which I believe is true to himself. It's really lent because, a lot of people find controversy in his music. Is he country? Is he not? His impact has been phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean,
he touches his audience.
It doesn't have to be for you for it to be good, right?
Right.
And just because it's not for you, it doesn't make it bad. I think that's something that I wrestle with country music a lot. And the best way I can explain it to people is like when somebody tells me they don't like Jelly Roll, I just picture it as the same way as when somebody tells me they don't like Luke Bryan. It doesn't mean Luke Bryan's bad. It means you don't like pop country. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like that's fine. Yeah. I happen to love it to death. In fact, one of my followers recently sent me a can of Luke Bryan boiled peanuts, which you're never going to find anywhere. This is like one of the craziest promo items I've ever received.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's just one of those things where I don't get when people say they don't like it. I'm like, it's just not your style of country. And I think that we're at a place culturally where people are willing to move past that idea, but there are always going to be people that are like, if it's not for me, then it's therefore not good.
Yeah, I always tell people it's fine to not like music. There is plenty of artists and songs out there that I don't like. They just don't take up my attention. I'm just too focused on what I do like, and that makes me a happier music fan.
Yeah. Kevin Smith, the filmmaker, says, people always say, why don't you spend more time criticizing, like hating movies? You love everything. He's like, I hate lots of things. I just don't talk about it.
That's well said.
That's the way that I take it. Like people will sometimes be like, you're always so positive on country. Like you love everything. Like, I don't. It's if you think like, man, they never post about blank. Maybe I hate that blank. I just, you know what I mean? Like that's my way of being like, I don't like this. I just don't amplify it.
Who are the artists in modern country that you think are just pivotal to the genre's dominance right now?
Oh man. Well, I mean, what? I'll tell you, my answer to that question is always going to be Morgan Wallen right now. And the reason I say it that way is because I've spent a lot of time lately wrestling with it because my wife and I have jokingly tried to do like, who's on your Mount Rushmore of country? And I wrestle with putting him on there, but I also, bold facts, I've seen him 3 times in the last 2 years. I've gone out of my way to see him live. And I wrestle with that cultural like stigma of like, well, is he country enough or whatever? For me, Wallen is definitely the guiding light point. He's kind of showing us, not because he's preserving what country music is, but because he's taking so much of its heart, or what we consider the heart of it, for the last 2 decades, 3 decades even, and injecting it into all these new ideas. And I do believe that it goes both ways. You can bring a ton of people into the genre who would never listen to it otherwise without somebody like him. And once they're in the door, they become more okay with all the stuff that doesn't sound like Morgan Wallen, right? Like if you go see Morgan Wallen live, at some point, the arena or the stadium will play Family Tradition by Hank Williams Jr. And everyone there is going to sing that song. But if you were to sit on the internet, they'd be like, people who like Morgan Wallen don't love real country music. That's just not true. You know what I mean?
I get it.
And when you go to his show and you hear 10,000 people sing Family Tradition and you don't know that song, you're going to look it up because it just is a fun song. And I think it goes both ways. And so he's important. And then I think it's about the veterans that are keeping that classic sound alive and fighting for it. Like we're lucky enough to live near this venue in northern Indiana called the Blue Gate. It's in Amish country, and all they do is primarily book artists from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that no longer tour anywhere else. And to see those stalwarts kind of keep that genre alive. Like to me, there's no one more badass in country music than Tanya Tucker. Like, and she goes on my Mount Rushmore. She is my forever icon, but she's also an example of like how to grow and change with the genre and keep representing it while allowing it to be whatever it chooses to become.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I got a Tanya Tucker story for you.
Hit me.
So you've done some content on the Super Bowl,
mm-hmm.
the halftime show, and Tanya was part of it.
Yeah.
We had one of the songwriters of It's a Little Too Late, which she performed that night on the podcast, Roger Murrah, who's, luckily for me, has now become a friend and he's a great man. He did not know she performed his song at the Super Bowl halftime show.
The check must not have changed.
But when you put Tanya on your Mount Rushmore, I totally get it. I think Morgan might be too soon. Might be too recent.
That's the thing, though. See, the way I look at it is like, So, like, this is where I go. My Mount Rushmore gets real weird after those two, right? So I always like Tanya and him.
Oh, let's do this. What is your Mount Rushmore of country music?
We'll do Morgan. I'll do Tanya Tucker because at least then I feel like I've given myself a little bit of a safeguard. This one is super controversial, I guess, to some people, but I always say that John Prine goes on my country Mount Rushmore. You can tell me that he's not country, but he's the perfect mix of country and Americana. I think what he did for songwriting still reverberates throughout the genre to this day, especially when you hear a song that doesn't fit the typical Nashville like structures. That's all John Prine coming through. And then my number 4 is tough. I think for number 4, I lean vocals. I mean, because I have a modern artist, I have a classic artist, I have somebody that I think is just like personal to me as being one of the best. And then my 4th one is probably Ronnie Dunn. Honestly, I mean, this is one I think I fight with a lot, but I think like when I'm old and hopefully one day I have grandchildren and they ask me what country music sounds like, hell, if you were to ask me right now to close my eyes and picture country music, I hear Ronnie Dunn's voice in my brain first no matter what, like that's where it goes for me. And people don't give him enough. He wrote Neon Moon, y'all. It's not like you said, it's not like 9 guys wrote that song. Ronnie Dunn wrote that song. And here we are, 30 plus years later, we still sing that song. New generations learn that song. He's one of the best.
Tony Brown, one of the most legendary producers in country music, told me that is the perfect country song. So I'm glad that you referenced it.
Yeah, I've tried to do a video about it 100 times. We make a lot of videos about like, here's the truth, here's the story behind this wild story behind a song. And that's one of the frustrating ones where there isn't really a great story. Like Springsteen by Eric Church, there's not really a story. It's like the muse struck, they listened, and an amazing song happened. There is no like beef to it. It's just like, sometimes it just all falls together. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those examples. What about you? What's your Mount Rushmore? I'm sorry if somebody's asked you before, but
let's see. So I'm putting Hank Williams on there because he's one of the founding fathers. Not a long career, but he was gone too soon, and I think his impact reverberates today. True. I have to put Wallen on there because he's my number 1 artist from the outlaw era. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone's been as important to country music as Dolly Parton in really growing the genre and bringing millions of fans to the genre. So I have to put Dolly on there. And 4th, I could either go to the beginning in Bristol, and I'm going with Johnny Cash.
I love that.
Now, the truth about my Mount Rushmore is it changes every 4 or 5 months.
Oh, yeah. I'm constantly thinking about this question. The only one that I will say never changes is Tanya Tucker. Like I kind of get annoyed. Like and whatever, people can choose whoever they want. But if you can't recognize like the women who like also like push the genre forward, Dolly's also a great choice. But every so often I hear people who just rattle off like Willie, Wallen, Cash, and Keith Whitley. And I'm like, no, hold on. I appreciate that that's your opinion, but like we got to recognize some of the other talent here.
Well, you have to respect anyone's list because it's their taste. But when we
It's their
talk about
taste.
Mount Rushmore, I was just a little thrown by some of your stuff because it's like it's really hard. It's hard to pick anybody. I mean, I could put George Strait on there, but I wouldn't go anywhere from the '80s on.
See, that's how I see. I thought about that, but in my brain, when I think about Mount Rushmore, I think one of the problems with the actual Mount Rushmore these days is that we're so disconnected from those people that like they're symbols of what this thing stands for, but they don't represent it anymore. And in my Mount Rushmore, as a living, breathing person, I want it to be reflective of all the changes. So in my head, I almost build it from like, we don't get to this guy without all these other people, but they're all instrumental in like the next phase of it. So for me, Tanya Tucker represents like that classic country. She does push the boundaries. I mean, we'll talk about TNT in the 80s of Tanya Tucker, amazing era, but she's my country classic person. John Prine, he wrote or ghost wrote a lot of the songs that I love and adore. Like I'm a huge David Allan Coe person.
Yeah,
Today we talked about he's the co-writer of You Never Even Call Me by a Name. And then
uncredited.
uncredited.
Right.
Ronnie Dunn, that's the 90s in a nutshell. Though there's a part of me that wants to say Travis Tritt at times.
Brother, you just won my heart.
Listen, man, Travis Tritt liked one of our Instagram posts this morning, actually, and I've been riding that high up until you and I got on this.
I mean, it takes everything I have not to put Travis on my Mount Rushmore because he is one of my favorite.
Now you're like, oh man, now he's.
Well, no, I just know it's just too soon.
It's just, I mean, I get that.
But to me, he was the number one artist of the '90s for me. I don't know if there's any artist out there. We can talk about metrics, and I understand some of the people that want to talk metrics. But when we talk about Travis Tritt, we were talking about a guy that continued on the outlaw era. And I don't know if anyone blazed a bigger trail than Travis did in the '90s for setting up all the success for today for artists that wanted to know, oh, country music is not one thing. It's a lot of things. It's soul R&B. It's Southern rock. It's bluegrass. It's traditional country. All of that. It's great songwriting. It's great musicianship. All of that you can find in Travis Tritt.
I would argue he's also the blueprint for bro country in some instances. He doesn't like to admit it, but if you look at like what he was doing in the early 2000s with like Girls Gone Wild is probably his last charting single.
I think Smoking a Bar was his last charting
Smoking
single.
a Bar, that's more recent. Yeah, you're right. So of that initial run, I want to say Girls Gone Wild. And that's a song where like if you'd put that out in 2012, it probably would have been way bigger. But it serves as like a blueprint for where that country is going, or what is considered an outlaw type song, because I think that predates a lot of Honky Tonk Badonk, what Trace Atkins does, and then what Florida Georgia Line does, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, so since we talked about Mount Rushmore, I have a feeling I know this answer, but so they have to be alive.
Yes.
So who is your king and queen of country music
right now?
Yeah.
Ooh, man. That is a tough question. Being alive really throws a wrench in this one for me.
Well, to be alive, you have to be alive to be the king and queen.
I mean, you're not wrong about that. Queen of country music right now is a really tough question for me, but my immediate answer, so I'm going to trust my gut on this, is Miranda. It has to be Miranda, right? The House That Built Me is maybe one of the most influential songs of the last 25 years. No question. Not even maybe. It is. Top 3 for sure, no question. And then for the king of country, who is leading the king of country right now? I used to say Chris Stapleton because I thought like that was the safe answer, but my feelings on that have shifted only because I feel like I love Chris Stapleton, but he doesn't represent the live side of country music the way that I wish he would. I've seen him live six or seven times, and it doesn't move the needle for me. So I'm going to say in a weird way, I'm going to take Luke Combs. Honestly, as much as I love Wallen, I think Luke Combs embodies the idea of what I think of when I think of a representative of country music. He's got the family aspect, he's got the songwriting, he's got the stable of songwriters. He's doing it the classic country way, but with enough forward facing ideas to keep him feeling very modern. I do think that we're about to enter a new album cycle for him as well, so I just want to bring it up for you to have the SEO in the future.
Yeah,
it's been like 6 months since he gave us a radio single. That's a clear sign that Luke Combs is about to drop something.
Yeah, for king and queen, I'm going Dolly for the queen, and then the king. You can flip a coin, George Strait or Willie Nelson.
Man, we work with George Strait. Like, we don't talk about it a lot, but we have a deal with his team, like where we do a lot of content with them, and I love him to death. I bump into the songwriter aspect of George Strait, though. I hate to say it, I do every time. I mean, I love him to death, but every time someone tells me he's the king, I'm like, he's the king in the same way that I think people say Morgan Wallen is the GOAT. It's like, yeah, if you have the right songwriters and the knack for picking the songs, you are the GOAT. That is a style of being the GOAT.
Yeah. I do want to shed some light on Miranda Lambert because I appreciate that answer as much as I do Luke. Luke's, he's one of the guys who really changed country music for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever listen to the 2011 debut album for Pistol Annies?
No, I don't think
Hell on Heels.
Okay.
So it's three women, and Miranda's one of the three. Ashley Monroe's the other, and every time I talk about them, I forget the third woman's name, and I hate that I cannot remember her name. Go back and listen to it. Mm-hmm. They changed the game with that album. They brought back traditional country in a way I had not heard at all through the aughts.
Whenever I talk about Miranda, to point out like why she's my queen, I point to the Marfa tapes. To me, that's maybe one of my favorite releases of the last 2 to 3 decades, without question. Easily my most played, probably. It's so raw. The songwriting is incredible, and as much as I like how a lot of those songs ended up on Palomino, I think the version they exist in the Marfa tapes is the correct one. It's just so honest and pure. But also, hey, fun fact about Ashley Monroe, not to distract you, but I've been thinking about her all day. So you said her name, and now my brain is like, let's say this. This won't be out before we do it, but our next video that we're dropping, that's like the story behind the song, is, did you know that Jason Aldean's song "The Truth"? I don't even know if I would put it in his top 5, but it was a massive hit for Jason Aldean back on the Wide Open album. It's 15 years old this week, hitting number 1. Ashley Monroe was 15 years old when she wrote that song.
Are you serious?
Yeah, when Brett James started working with Ashley Monroe, she had the idea for "The Truth." She was 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I read that today and I was like, well, I guess we all continue to underestimate Ashley Monroe.
When Ashley Monroe wrote "A Life That's Good," I hate to get dark, but like if I had one night left on this earth, she kind of paints the scene that I would want it to be.
I love that.
Around the people I love, around a campfire, and just 2 arms around me. I mean, the lyric. Oh, man.
So good.
That song, it's funny because it was a TV show song, but to me, I still listen to it all the time. So shout out to Ashley for one of the greatest songs ever. Yeah.
A secret killer songwriter. Not secret because she chooses to be either. It's just, we don't recognize that as much as we should.
So you seem to be a big fan of 90s country.
Man, let me tell you. I think that I'll probably get a DM. I think I'll probably get a DM after we're done with this when he sees it, but I should have put John Michael Montgomery on there. He is my GOAT of 90s country.
Okay, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, his son Walker just sent me this record. It's autographed and made out to me, and I cried, honestly, when I opened it.
John Michael Montgomery is one of the greatest artists for 90s country. I totally appreciate the attention you give to him, but he's not the GOAT of 90s.
Oh,
but
easily.
He's up there, but I have to debate you on if he's the GOAT.
6 number ones in the first 2 years of his radio career. 10 top 10 singles.
I get it now. Life's a Dance is one of the greatest songs ever.
Didn't even go number 1. It stalls at like number 3.
I see. That's the thing. I don't worry about where a song goes on the charts. But if we're talking metrics, Garth, Allen, these guys dominated the 90s.
See, I feel like, so the reason I say John Michael Montgomery is because, well, in part because I think he's underappreciated. So I definitely love waving the banner for John Michael Montgomery.
That's great. That's a good thing to do.
He's one of those. Well, I just don't think people always connect all the songs. Like, you don't think of "I Swear" and "I Could Love You Like That" necessarily when you think of 90s country hits, because they were such big crossovers and they had the covers, but like, he gave those songs soul.
Yes, I get it.
And he does write a lot. See, my thing with Garth is like, I am a big Garth champion, but diminishing returns, even if we get past all of his stances on streaming and everything else, whatever. Yeah. If the music held up, we'd be a completely different conversation. If he was putting out albums that weren't on streaming, but were so good that you had to hear them anyways, I think he would continue to hold that crown. But I bought the last 2 box sets, which were mostly the same 4 albums. And I've listened to all of them. And Time Traveler, Garth's most recent record, has like 5 songs that I think are truly great songs. But 1, no one's ever going to hear him. And 2, he's never going to play them live. And so I run into this point where I'm like, what do we, it just feels like an act of vanity for what he's doing now. And to me, that kind of like crushes that goat of 90s country. Travis Tritt, we could talk about because continues to tour, still plays those songs, still writes great songs. That to me, that's a better contender. As much as I love Garth, I feel like he's ruining his legacy with time. Time is not doing that to him.
Yeah. Have you seen Travis Tritt's solo acoustic performance concert?
Yeah, we have. We saw that one a couple years ago, and I've seen every version except for full band in like a 1,500 cap room, which I'm seeing in July finally. But we saw him at a festival. We've seen him acoustic, and I love it.
It's as good as it gets, brother.
It's always amazing when someone can sit in a chair and like hold the room in their hands. And his chair is very comfortable. I don't blame him.
So listen, since we're talking about Travis, I want to tell you this fun fact. You can't be stealing this for a reel.
Okay, deal.
Would be interesting though. But so we're in the middle of the early February, and the class of '89 had a lot of great debuts that year, like Alan Jackson and Mary Chapin Carpenter. But the first three debuts that year were Clint Black, Garth Brooks, and Travis Tritt, which I call between them three the age of Aquarius. Clint Black was born on February 4th. Garth was born on February 7th, and Travis was born on February 9th.
That is weird.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I never knew that. It's weird that somebody tells me a country fact from the 90s I haven't heard before, but that one I have not heard before. I love that.
Let me see. Well, speaking of that, you also did a pretty funny thing on Billy Ray and Travis's feud.
Big Billy Ray guy here. Let me tell you, I grew up. That was my doorway to country music. My mom was in the Billy Ray Cyrus fan club in the 90s, which existed, and they had a denim jacket which we had in our house, and it was autographed. I grew up with Some Gave All being like the blueprint for me.
Now that's a good song.
Some Gave All. People underestimate that record because that one song is so big. There are other hits on that record. There were other hits.
Could Have Been Me was a good song.
Could Have Been Me. Where Am I Gonna Live When I Get Home?
But I'm just not a big Billy Ray fan. I love those two songs, and that's kind of where it ends for me.
See, I even like the next album, Trail of Tears, which gets real weird. I start talking about later Billy Ray albums, and people just glaze over, so we don't do videos about it. It's just that one record.
Well, Billy Ray, man, he's gotten himself in some trouble. I don't think he should have gone to that inauguration.
No, man. Let me tell you, when we got into doing this, I used to say, like, my dream is that I can... There's this great story. I don't know, you might have heard it, but Cletus T. Judd tells this story about how when he started making music, his goal was to let his mom meet Vince Gill. And one day he actually got to make that happen. And mine was to like let my mom meet Billy Ray Cyrus. And then this inauguration thing happened, and I was talking to her, and she straight up looked me in the eyes and was like, I don't need to meet Billy Ray. I was like, all right, cross that off the list.
What a bad look for country. And he said, what did he say in the press release? That's just rock and roll.
Yeah, it's just rock and roll, baby.
He ain't a rock star.
It's a swagger that I wish I had. I wish when something didn't go well, I could be like, that's just rock and roll, man.
I'll give you that. It would be embarrassing for me.
Yeah, I don't, man, you gotta, it's whatever, man. I appreciate it. I wanted him to, I'm cheering for him. I'm rooting for him really hard, but I don't know if he can come back from this one.
What makes a good story for you when you're out there researching and looking?
Honestly, it's just a matter of my test is, I always call it the wife test, which is I spend a lot of time by myself doing this, obviously. My wife, Laura, helps me when we go places. If you see us out in the world, Laura's filming me. She's doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but it's mostly just me doing all the research. So if I say it to her and she doesn't like glaze over, it's usually a pretty good sign. Same thing for our joke videos. Like we just did a video about Trump's executive orders where the punchline was that they were all lyrics from Riley Green's I Wish Grandpa's Never Died.
Yeah.
It usually starts as like an idea and then me telling it to her to see if she laughs. But for the song, sometimes it's also as simple as like, I get a song stuck in my head or it comes up on a playlist and I just, that's what I find interesting. And it's what I always try to like teach people about content. It's like, is it something I would watch? So like, I love that Zac Brown band song, Colder Weather. And when it gets cold, I sing that song to myself. And then one day I was like, where does this come from? We saw Blake Shelton in concert back in September. He sang Austin. And I was reminded how much I love that. It's a perfect song. And so then I go home and in my head, I'm just like, where does this come from? And hopefully there's an answer. Sometimes there's not. Luckily, we've gotten to the point now where I know a few people who work in songwriting in Nashville. So if I don't know, but I know who wrote it, sometimes I can like send a text and be like, hey, could you ask so and so what the heck this is about?
And do you get answers?
Sometimes, you know, sometimes, not always. Sometimes it's also fact checking. So like Blake Shelton's song Austin is allegedly based on a true story, like that they called another songwriter. There's one of the songwriters calls another songwriter in Nashville. At the end of their voicemail says, PS, if this is Austin, I love you. They want to record that. They're immediately like, this should be a song. The person whose voicemail it is doesn't want to do it. They say like, if you want to try, go ahead. And then they write this song and it ends up being this massive hit. And to me, it was just like, can you imagine being the person who recorded that voicemail, right? Like you're just going through life. Something's wrong. Like you're trying to like win somebody over. You're trying to make up for something. You're just trying to be your purest self to get this person to love you. And that act of love translates into this song that is now 20 plus years going, still finding new fans. And it's representative of that person's like true emotion, true feeling. And to me, like that's such a cool story, right? Like that these simple little moments can be resonating with so many people. That's why I almost get mad when I find out a song like Springsteen is just from the Muse, because I want to talk about Springsteen and I need a way into talking. I can't just make a video that's like, don't y'all love Springsteen? I need a reason to talk about Springsteen.
Yeah.
I tried recently by saying it's the most influential country song of the last 25 years.
I saw that video.
I do think that that's true. We can talk about that, but that was my answer. I eventually ended up being like, this is the only way I can think to get there.
Okay. So of those songs that you posted, you choose Springsteen as the most influential song of the last 25 years?
Yeah. A lot of reasons. For starters, that's the song that made me think about it, because I was listening to, I think it's on the Thomas Rhett's new album. On Thomas Rhett's new album, there's a song, I think it's called Church, that's all about taking a girl to see Eric Church. It's not about going to see church. And then there's that Jordan Davis song that he did recently where the hook talks about, do you remember when we went to see Chief perform? Another Eric Church reference. I think Wallen has the song with Eric Church on his last record. And then I saw an interview with somebody else recently that I really love. And they were like, I'm just trying to write a song as good as Springsteen. And then the more I was digging into it, I was like, man, there's been like probably half a dozen songs that reference Springsteen directly, not to mention songs that just talk about Eric Church or reference Eric Church offhandedly. And then every summer on social media, there's this trend where people will be like, it's almost Springsteen season, because there's something about the way that piano and drum go together at the beginning of the song.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? If you hear it in your head right now and you're like, yeah, that feels good. It just feels good on the ears. And that thing is like, I think everyone's chasing that now, especially when you look at how songwriting has evolved. You don't get to like a Zach Bryan or any of that stuff, I think, without going through Eric Church first.
That's Jay Joyce, baby.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I do think the people that argued Big and Rich were probably pretty close to accurate as well, as much as I don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I just have to reference Jay Joyce because what that guy's able to do with producing the music. Him and Eric are like the perfect marriage.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to Jay Joyce one day just to be like, tell me about finding that drum sound, because it is what makes that song. Like the song rips no matter what, but there's something about that particular snare sound at the beginning that helps that whole nostalgia feeling that overwhelms you throughout it.
Yeah. When Jay got his own label, my buddy here, Stephen Clausen, who now goes by the name Stevenson Everett, was his first artist on his label. And so he got to produce a record with him or work on a record with him. And man, what a cool moment. That his impact on country music is phenomenal.
I love that, man. That makes me so happy. I like to hear that people are actually great like that.
You know, so I guess you and Nikki talk Eric a lot.
Mm-hmm. Every now and then.
You know, for me, Eric's best song ever that, has an emotional attachment for me, Some of It.
Oh.
That is just one of the most perfectly written songs. Did Eric write it?
I don't know if he did, actually. You're hitting me with it all. Now I got to look it up while we're talking here.
Yeah, please do, because I'd like to know. I think that is one of the most beautiful songs.
One of 4: Bobby Pinson, Clint Daniels, Jeff Hyde, and Eric Church. So,
well, shout out to all 4 of them. What a perfect song. Are you a huge Eric fan?
I am. I'll tell you, I always was, especially, The Outsiders was the album that definitely brought me into it full fold. I was a fan before that, but The Outsiders is definitely my favorite Eric Church project. But I remember a few years ago, he was at CRS. Every year, CRS, Country Radio Seminar for everybody else, they have an artist interview at the end, like a keynote interview with an artist of some kind. And this was in 2020, right before the pandemic started. He had just recorded what would become his big double album. And they did this interview with him where he talked about how they rented a ski lodge or whatever lodge in North Carolina, all the hotels around it, the diner, they rented all of it. And they had locked themselves in there for 30 days and written a song every single day.
Wow.
And that was going to be the album. So every morning they woke up and the diner they had access to. So they cooked dinner, they cooked food in the diner, and then they would go over to this room and write, and they'd record in the afternoon. And almost every single one of those songs makes that double record. And I remember just sitting in the crowd and being like, I wish I had the confidence to like everything I make this month, I'm going to put out into the world. You know what I mean? It's all up to snuff.
You know, I'm such a big fan of Eric's, but it seems like you have a deeper knowledge of his catalog. Let's give people James Shotwell's top 5 Eric Church songs of all time.
Oh man. Well, obviously we're going to put Springsteen on there. Here's a weird one for you. If you go on streaming services, he does this live record series called 61 Days in Church. It's like, I think there's 4 of them. It's 4 live albums. There's a Bob Seger cover of Turn the Page in there.
Boom.
10 out of 10. Can't recommend it enough. And then obviously The Outsiders, got to be a classic song. You got to run through The Outsiders as a title track. I rarely take a title track, but for me, that one is going to be one you have to have. I get 2 more here, and I'm trying to talk long enough to remember all of his songs off the top of my head. I'm going to go with, can't not do Record Year, probably, as much as I hate to pick another single. And then off the early stuff, now people are going to say Smoke a Little Smoke, but there's a song off that same record, Carolina, called Hell of a Heart, Hell on the Heart. Killer. Eric Church doesn't do a lot of songs that are under 3 minutes long. That one comes in at 2:44. Like, it was built to be on the radio, never really was, but it's an early sign. What I love about that song is that it represents how Eric Church could very easily be the biggest thing in country radio and makes a choice not to. Like, purposely puts things in front of himself to prevent himself from being as commercially successful as possible. And for whatever reason, I love that about him, where he's like, I could do it.
That's actually a good thing in the long run.
Oh yeah, totally. Because now he has fans that really care about the music, and he can play whatever he wants, and it doesn't matter. I was just talking to my wife about this Morgan Wallen tour, super pumped. But when you think about his set list, if you're a big fan, there's only like 4 songs that he can swap out at this point, and the rest are all number ones.
Yeah. How many number ones does he have, bud?
Who does anyone? Let me think. I can't think of how many total. He's
putting up huge numbers, isn't he?
Huge numbers. Yeah, that's why I was like, man, his set list. When I think about his set list, because I saw it a bunch of times last year, like, he played Sunrise is one of the only songs where I'm like, you could probably drop this and most of the crowd wouldn't care. But he has so many radio hits that, like, everyone in that room, one of those songs is going to be the soundtrack to their life. And it's hard to imagine him cutting like any of the old stuff, because now at this point they're all such iconic tracks for him. 7 Summers Ago, Whiskey Glasses, Up Down, The Way I Talk, which is still his closer after a billion other hits.
I love that song.
I mean, yeah, right? Even now, if I had to make someone a Morgan Wallen fan, I'd probably start there.
Every time I have to listen back to my podcast and I'm like, oh my God, do I really talk like that? I just go, no, that's just the way I talk.
Yeah, there you go. See, it's perfect. And that's probably that's the whole way that it came together, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let me ask you about an artist that I just am in love with right now. Willow Avalon.
Love her. Saw her in November in Arizona at this festival called Dreamy Draw. They flew us out to be influencers. I didn't know anything about her, but even before we got there, the organizer was like, hey, we want you to come out and do whatever you do, but make sure that you see Willow Avalon because we're really betting on her. And I was like, okay, sure. And it was the real deal.
I think her voice, I love Willow Avalon's voice. And I have to be honest with you, I love it when someone can open up with the opening line of a song and grab me immediately. And when she sings, hey there, Dolly, I'm just like you, got big titties and a big heart too, I'm just like, this is perfect.
Yeah, no,
what a
absolutely.
perfect song.
I'll tell you a female up and comer that I am obsessed with, and I will shout from the rooftops. It's this woman from Florida named Emily Zeck, who played the same festival. Emily Zeck with a Z. She's doing surfer cowgirl country, but she has this the same thing going for her. There's a song called "What It Is," um, and it's kind of her declaration statement song. You know
Hmm.
who I am and what I stand for. But I would compare it to like the first time I heard it, it was like hearing early Casey Musgraves, like merry-go-round
Oh,
type
yes.
Casey Musgraves. She writes songs like that. And so the song, it has a lot of fun little wordplay, that little tongue-in-cheek thing that Casey does so well. And I don't think there's enough of that in country songwriting. So, a few weeks ago, my friends at CMT were asking about their upcoming acoustic sessions. And they said Willow Avalon as an example. They're like, we have Willow Avalon. Who do you want? Who do you think we should consider? And the only name on my list was Emily Zeck. So now that you've said Willow Avalon, I will pass Emily Zeck to you. She has
Well, I'm
one
making a
EP.
note of it. I have not
It
heard her
came
yet.
out. It came out last August. She's only played a couple of shows. She just played Nashville for the first time. She headlined on the 29th, I think. But she's really making waves, no pun intended. But she is also a full-time surfer. So I think she's the only person in country music who surfs and does that other than like Kenny Chesney.
Kip Moore.
Kip Moore, yeah. Man, you want to talk about my most anticipated album of 2025? It's Kip Moore. I don't know. I
Well,
don't know what's in the sauce with those new songs, but they are the best things he's done in a minute.
I go back to like Heart's Desire, and I've just
Mm-hmm.
always been disappointed that I do not believe, I could be wrong, but I do not believe that he's ever won Vocalist of the Year, and that guy could win it every year. His vocal is one of the strongest out there.
And I couldn't agree more with you. And right now, if there's anybody watching or listening that has not heard, there's a new Kip Moore song, not the newest one, but the second to last single he put out was called Bad Spot.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, not only is it a great song, performed wonderfully, the metaphor is perfect. It's about the idea of losing somebody not because they weren't the right person for you, but because you were going through something and you treated them poorly or whatever. Life happens and things fell apart. And now you finally have like taken care of yourself and you're in a position to be with them again. For starters, no one writes songs that mature in Nashville anymore. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
always just
right.
like you wronged me and now I'm going to burn your car down. This is like we're old, like this is like we aren't kids, like let's figure out a way through this. And I love that there's somebody in his position making songs like that.
Yeah. Well, he's earned the right to put out whatever he wants, but everything he puts out is great.
Yeah, I mean, will it ever be as good as The Bull? For me, probably not. But I want it to be. I'm waiting for him to release the next song I love that much.
Yeah. Well, he's out there promoting, so he has a lot of stuff coming. I think he's put 6 songs out.
6. Well, he said the album is A through D sides, so I'm guessing it's got to be a pretty big track list. Well, let me look right now. 23 songs for Kip Moore. That's a ton of songs.
Yeah. Well, that's terrific.
Yeah, man.
Let me ask you something else we have going on currently. There's a lot of discussion about the Country Music Hall of Fame. Do you
Mhm.
have any predictions for the 2025 class?
I've got actually technically 4, 2 in one of the categories for you. So modern category, which is 20 years. People have been 20 years or longer. I mean, we've already talked about him. I made a video about this back in January. The answer is Travis Tritt. I believe Travis
Amen.
Tritt should be in the Hall of Fame. There's no reason he shouldn't. He has, I think, 30 million sold, 7 number ones, countless. He's the man's a legend.
Amen.
And my biggest defense is that Waylon Jennings himself, when asked about who the future of country music was, he said Travis Tritt. And like, are we really going to say Waylon was wrong? And he wasn't. He was right. He predicted it. So that's my modern pick. No questions. I mean, there are other people. You can consider a ton of people, but to me, Tritt is the most deserving. Plus the fact that he's still doing it. Man plays 100+ shows a year, and they're great.
That's
I
right.
see some of these 90s artists. I saw Little Texas last year at a fair in northern Michigan, and I'm not kidding you. It was rough. It was the roughest day of my life in terms of just like, you ever go to see one of your heroes and maybe the ball has passed them and
Yeah.
you're now a late stage career. This was a rough one. And I love Little Texas, but I was just like, when you see Travis Tritt, he's still a star. He comes out
still
on
there.
stage.
Got it.
He's still, that magic thing is still there in those eyes. Okay, veterans. This is a tough category, but I actually have the one that I immediately thought of and then the one that I've recently really been defending around my house. So the immediate name for a veteran, Gary Stewart, because it makes no sense that Gary Stewart is not already in the Country Music Hall of Fame to me. You ask people around about songs that will last the test of time, She's Acting Single, no question. And that record is fantastic. But Gary Gary deserves it. My backup one. Hold on, I actually have a visual reference for this. My backup one. So a couple of months ago, I'm a big Facebook Marketplace guy because I'm a man in the late half of my 30s. So I spent a lot of time on Marketplace, and recently somebody's grandma died or whatever, and the kid was getting rid of their vinyl collection. So I bought like 50 old country records for $5. And in that collection was 9 Mo Bandy albums. And I have become obsessed with Mo. I always liked Mo Bandy.
Awesome.
But something I didn't recognize about him until I picked up this essentially catalog of his releases was that almost every Mo Bandy record is named after something horrible, like a horrible act of cheating on your lover or just being a bad person. And then every song title almost re-emphasizes the title of the album in a way that they just don't do anymore. Like this record in my hand here, Mo and a woman on the cover. It's called She's Not Really Cheating, She's Just Getting Even. Fantastic song. But there's like 4 songs on this record that have similar titles where you're just like, oh man, how he's like the cheating king. I think he has like 4 number ones and 3 of them have the word cheating in them. He was just the guy who wrote about cheating. And I think that he's still alive. Mo Bandy's not dead. He's still out there. And we need to recognize his work. Then I need a third one, right? What's the last category?
Non-performer.
Non-performer. Nudie.
That's Nudie a good Cohn. Call. Nudie Cohn.
I can't believe that he's not, right? Because I've been to the Country Music Hall of Fame 5 or 6 times now. They have plenty of Nudie suits. I think there might even be a placard about Nudie, but he's not actually in the Hall of Fame yet. So I think that one also feels like just sometimes they just pick the obvious one, and to me that's like a 2-foot putt for them.
We're sorry, we just took a quick break, and we're back.
We're back. Yeah, I was going to tell you, I find it fortunate when we get to see people turn it on, like artists go into mode. So we saw Gavin Adcock a few months ago. He's a fan of Country Minute. He invited us out to the show. And I've been with a lot of artists who you spend time with before the show, and then they disappear because they have to warm up or do whatever they need to get into the space to perform. We were with Gavin Adcock. I had my foot on the steps he took to get on stage. We were with him so long.
Wow.
We were with him until he went on stage. And there was this moment, like a minute before, like the crowd was chanting Gavin. The band is on stage and he's just kind of hanging out. And I saw him like take a second, take a big breath. And then like he just appeared. Like, cause he's not that guy backstage. He's not slamming beers and doing like, he can't do that and then perform. That all comes out like once he's on stage. Backstage, he's just like a guy watching the football game with me. And then they start chanting Gavin, and it's almost like a possession comes over him, and you get to watch him go up there and do the thing. And he gets off stage and it just immediately goes away again. And I guess that happens for us too, for me, at least as a creator, except mine is just like I hit record and then I'm like, hey.
Well, I want to ask you hit on something there when you were talking about Gavin. How does it feel for you when people that are, industry veterans, current artists, influencers, when they recognize your work, how does that make you feel?
I mean, obviously it feels good. Sometimes it feels bad only if I wonder if I've made a joke or something in the past. The hardest thing for me is not saying something. So if I'm lucky, they'll follow us and then I feel comfortable saying something. But like yesterday, I want to say Gary LaVox liked a post of ours. And I've been trying to do something with Rascal Flatts for months. We made a really big fuss about their reunion. I have a bunch of friends in common with him, but I don't know him personally. And he liked one of our posts and I went to send him a DM and I just deleted it out of shame because I was like, just getting the recognition is enough for me. And I want to be like, oh, you like us? Can I ask you for something?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate when somebody, every now and then we'll meet somebody in the wild who say they like us. I tell this story a lot, but I was taking up my son to pick up dinner somewhere one night here in Grand Rapids where we live. And I had a really bad day. This is right before the TikTok ban. I was really stressed out about money and stuff. And I'm leaving this sandwich shop and I'm putting the baby in the car. Like the bag is on the roof with the drinks and I'm trying to fight with my son to get him in the car seat. And there's an intersection across from where I'm parked. And somebody is turning at the intersection. As they're turning, they lean out of the passenger side window of this car and he goes, Country Minute. And I like look up and I go, what? And he goes, Country Minute. I go, yeah. He goes, I love your videos, bro. And then he just like zooms off into the ether. And I remember first words out of my mouth were, "Your mother is never going to believe this." And sure enough, like I got in my car, called my wife. She definitely did not believe that it happened, but he found me online later. And to me, that means so much more, because I believe that people in Nashville see stuff, because when something hits like 1 million views,
Mm-hmm.
there's only so many people in country music. I know that people are seeing it that are verified, but when it's like somebody out in the real world who then puts 2 and 2 together, that's much more fun for me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the best time with an artist was this. Last year we did a video with Walker Hayes, and part of it was that we had to go to a casino to do the show. So it was like, a day in the life. Come with us to see Walker Hayes. Afterwards, they're like, "Do you want to meet him and ask a few questions?" Sure. But instead of like letting us meet him as like a journalist, they put us at the end of the meet and greet, and they were like, "Well, when you get there, just ask him a few questions." So we kind of seem like fans. We wait through this line, we get up there, and I start talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do I know you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You look so familiar." And like, we're just sitting there for a second, and I have to be like, "Well, do you spend a lot of time on social media? You've probably seen me talk about something." He's like, "Oh," and I always jokingly say, like, this is when artists realize that they've only seen me like when they're laying in bed or pooping. Like, those are the two, like one night Tom Brady liked a video of ours at like 1:30 in the morning. And all I could think was like, Tom Brady is laying in bed, not able to sleep, looking at my face right now. Like,
how funny.
So like when someone thinks they recognize me, I'm always like, well, you're probably not when you saw me, you were probably not doing something where you would expect to see other people, right? Like going to the bathroom, laying in bed, waiting at the doctor's office.
Right.
We actually, I don't have one right here, but we actually just got in this new batch of stickers that we're sending to people that say, "I watch Country Minute when I don't have anything better to do."
Oh, how funny.
And that's kind of like, so whenever when people say they like our stuff, in my head, I'm like, "Oh, I'm what you watch in the bathroom," or like when you can't sleep at night. That's your way of being like, "You help me pass time."
You're cracking me up. It's funny because where people might recognize other people by their name, you just get called Country Minute. So you get to maintain a little anonymity.
Oh yeah, sometimes people will be like, "Do you have like, what's your real name?" I'm like, "It's James." I say James. I'm happy to be country. That goes back to that. Is are you an influencer? Because everyone else, you go, "That's Dylan." But I chose Country Minute because I always thought it was weird if I was just James Shotwell, and I was like, "Let me tell you the latest news about Morgan." It just didn't make sense to me in my brain. Yeah. So it needed a name. But I'll tell you something I haven't told anyone else, is that
please,
a bonus of having this name is that we get to be creative with it. So we actually have a mascot for Country Minute. That's coming our way very soon. He doesn't have a name. Maybe you and your listeners can help me figure out a name, but he's basically an anthropomorphic clock with a cowboy hat and boots. He's very cute. He's very lovely. I love him to death. We're going to be debuting him soon, but he needs a name, and I cannot think of any good country puns. Like we thought of like Time McGraw, Reba McEntire, Boots McMinutes. They're all funny, but haven't nailed it yet. So if anyone out there has a very funny country time pun, I need it.
Well, Tanya Tucker has that song. No, that's Lori Morgan. Sorry. Yeah. 5 minutes. Never mind. Mm-hmm. I was going to try to tie it into Tanya Tucker for you, but I think I had it wrong. It was Lori.
Tanya Clocker. Yeah.
I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, but no, we're so that's one of our ways that we're going to try to do something a little bit different. We got to expand what we're doing. I
need to see the mascot to get a feel for the name.
I'll send you a text when we're done with this. I have a sketch of him from our designer.
Okay. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you got a child sleeping. So I'm just going to end with, first off, this has been a lot of fun for me, brother. Talking music with you has been just awesome.
Man, I've been looking forward to this. You're my first. I've done a lot of podcasts back when I worked in marketing and alternative music, obviously. I've done a lot. But since we've moved to country, I haven't. It's funny because like when I get to do this, I can be like, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've been in Rolling Stone and all that. But to everyone else, I'm just a TikToker in country music. So like they don't have any reason to talk to me.
Yeah.
And if we sit down and they're like, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I went to college for this. I'm not quite a complete fool. Most of the time.
No, I dug in and found out that you were a background in journalism, so and working in the music business. So I had a feeling this was going to be a good conversation. But I want to end with you giving advice to content creators because you've done such a great job of building something. You've told some of your story already. Yeah. But when you advise other people, what it takes to really find your groove and find success as a content creator.
Man, I said it earlier and I'll say it again. It sounds stupid, but it is the single best measurement of success for me is would I watch this? Like I have to constantly be asking myself, would I watch this? Because I know a lot of like I wasn't a musician, but for a lot of years I made content for people who wanted to learn how to market their band. And I was okay at it. I was really good at it to some extent, but I never loved it because I would never get on YouTube and search like 4 best ways to market my new single. I don't do that. However, I do listen to Zach Brown Band, hear Colder Weather, and in my head be like, what the heck is this song about? And as soon as that thought crosses my mind, like, here's something I like and I'm curious about it in some way, I just like I meant that's the cue. That's the thing, right? Like as soon
Yes.
as you find what that is, write it down, bottle it, slam a lid on it, and then explore that idea when you get the chance, and to whatever extent you can. And maybe you can't, make a documentary about whoever it is that you want to, but you can make one video that starts talking about your love, because the biggest factor for me in terms of success is if people connect with what you're saying. So A, they have to find it interesting, but B, you have to be compelling in saying it. And as a guy who's made a lot of videos, even if you're getting paid to do it, unless you like the thing, it's just not going to, it never works. I've never had someone pay me to post a song that I didn't like, and then the video miraculously got 2 million views.
Right.
I've definitely sometimes liked a song, made a video about it and got no views, but at least I would watch that video. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I would rather that be the outcome. So for everyone else, I'm always just like, just ask, like, instead of worrying about where to start, just wait until you have an idea that's like, I want to see that. Even if it already exists, if you love Legos and you want to make videos about Lego content, yeah, there's a lot of Lego creators out there, but you probably would do it in a way that they don't do it. Like for me, my wife and I, we have this child. I'm a full-time dad. I work from home thanks to being able to do Country Minute. But as a result, like my day is, right now I'm really obsessed with parenting songs because I listen to so many songs with my baby that are like, you're going to miss this by Trace Adkins. I'm like, I'm not sure I am, but I want to know why he wrote that song, why that song exists. But it is a matter of, but I'm also like not trying to make parent content. It doesn't interest me. I don't get on my phone to look at that kind of thing, but it is what my life evolves around. So I feel like a lot of people are trying to figure out the niche first. And to me, it's just like, well, what do you look at? Do you just get on your For You page and start scrolling? And like, to me, if I didn't do this, I would probably make snack content, because the other half of my feed is people being like, here are the latest snacks coming to stores. And I know that about myself, but that's my big piece of advice. And the second one is just like, just try, just make stuff, man. I've been doing this since 2008. I was a blogger at the height of blogging. I made long form videos when those were big, and now I make short form videos. And I still meet people every single week that are like, you just started doing this, and it's like, just no. And everyone's just trying to figure it out. And you are just as likely to go viral as I am. I'm just taking more swings, more than anything else. Right. I'm just taking more swings. So just get out there and start swinging. There's a great quote from Mr. Beast where he says, when somebody asks me how to make a great video, I tell them to make 100 videos, and then you will know how to make a good video.
Right.
And I think that that's true. It took me 200 TikTok videos to understand how to make a TikTok video.
Yep. And most people abandon ship before then because they think they're not getting the numbers. It's not working.
Man, I always use my wife as an example. She's a very successful radio DJ, one of the top ones in this market. She was number one in her last market. She absolutely loves TikTok, hates posting to it because of something. She posts something and it doesn't work. She has this mentality of like, I can just get on the airwaves and talk to 10,000 people every day. Mm-hmm. I don't need this app. I don't need to start at zero again. And I get that, man. It sucks being at zero. It also hurts your ego, especially if you've done something good otherwise. Like if you're a good accountant right now, you don't want to make a cooking video and have 0 views because you're really good at accounting. But like, everyone starts there, you know? We posted a video this week of Morgan Wallen singing a Linkin Park cover on tour because he used to do that to fill his set list. It's just, we all start somewhere. Just embrace the suck and make your content and reach out to people. Eddie Meringue, one of the biggest content creators between me and Dylan. He's probably in between us in terms of size right now on TikTok, a little bit smaller on Instagram. But he reached out to me in October 2023 and was like, dude, I want to make videos like you. How can I do it? I basically gave him the exact same advice. And now he's got 250,000 followers on TikTok. He makes videos for Graylin James and Rashad and all these up and coming artists on the side. He's made a whole business for himself, all because he likes to share new country music. That's his thing. And some days his videos get 300 views and some days they get 2.5 million, but he's still going to post another video tomorrow. There's no like mountaintop where you're like, oh, I don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Heck, it's Wednesday. On Monday, we posted a Beyonce reaction video. It has 5.5 million views. It's made less than $1,000. I still have to work this week. The numbers don't matter until they matter.
Don't matter.
You know what I mean?
I'm definitely going through a phase right now where I just learned how to make reels like late last spring, and I have his range. I have one that went to 1.5 million, and I have some that get 300 or 400, and it is frustrating, but it's fun. The process is fun.
Yeah, it's a good time, I think. And if you don't enjoy it, that's okay. I also tell people like it's okay to not like it. Like it's okay to try and be like, this isn't for me, and then just decide not to do it. Like you don't have to. This idea of the personal brand and always having to have something to say is like, no, if I didn't do this, I probably wouldn't make content. Sometimes I think about having another channel where I ramble about non-country things, but then there's no reason to do it. You know, I don't need to. It's also okay to be like, I just want to consume things. Please be a fan. The world needs fans.
I know. Well, buddy, I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of Holiday and Weldon and Nikki. What you guys do for me as a music fan means a lot. And I've just been honored to have you on and talk to you today, brother.
Man, I can't tell you how much this has meant to me. I'm a fan of yours. I love what you're doing to explore the community. I think that the key to everything, I think the key to all of us getting ahead is context. We all need to not only know more about the music that we love,
yes,
the music that inspired it, but also these people that we're talking to. Learn about you, learn about me. That connection that we have with people. That's why they send me Luke Bryan boiled peanuts, because we form a connection. Honestly, this guy offered to send me another can with Guy Fieri because they're doing a Guy Fieri one next, and
of course they are.
Yes. So Brent Underwood, that's his name. I wrote it on the can so I wouldn't forget. Just a fan, just a follower, sent me these boiled peanuts. It's like the 6th time I found an excuse to show them to somebody. I love them so much.
Well, hang out for a moment while the file uploads. But y'all, we appreciate y'all coming, y'all tuning in, and please, if you will, follow Country Minute on Instagram. You know what, James? Why don't you plug your stuff?
Hey, Country Minute exists everywhere. I always tell people that Country Minute is the biggest country music fans on the planet, giving you everything you need to know about Country Minute and the culture around it. You can find us on TikTok. It's just Country Minute. You can find us on Instagram. There's an underscore in there. We're on YouTube. We also have a newsletter. I haven't updated it in like 7 months, but there is a newsletter and you can join it because hopefully we'll get that going soon. And if you want some really basic merchandise, we sell that too. So find Country Minute wherever you do. Search it. You'll find us.
All right, brother. Thanks for watching, y'all.